And welcome back to the show. And I'm joined this evening by my good friend, my co host on the Baseball Talk radio show, and the host of Phillies Talk. And he also has a blog called Fighting Phillies. He is Rich Baxter, and he's with me now. Rich, welcome back to Metsmusings.
Thank you very much, Gary. It's great to be back. Can't believe we're talking about another baseball season.
Wow, Rich, and we're talking about your Phillies tonight, and the Mets are going to Philadelphia next Monday, or this coming Monday, I should say, the 10th. So, Phillies are in a rebuild, full blown rebuild, and I saw today, just as a side note, that Ryan Howard signed a minor league deal with the Atlanta Braves, I believe it was. Any feelings on that at all?
Yeah, a lot of reaction from the fans, some good, some bad. They don't want to face him. I believe he's going down to the minors to take an extended spring training type of deal before he comes up to the big club. But Ryan Howard had the most home runs against those Atlanta Braves. So it's very interesting to see that they're going to take a chance with him. And I'm surprised that a better team didn't step up and take Ryan Howard. I still think he has a little something left in his tank, maybe 2 years to be a good hitter. We'll have to see if that's true or not. But I was very surprised to see no team picked him up before the Braves did today.
And you would think that a American League team would pick him up because he's really more of a designated hitter. And if you think about it, where's he going to play in Atlanta? I mean, they have Freddie Freeman at first base. He's certainly not going to push him out of a job. He'll probably be, I guess the plan would be a backup first baseman and an occasional pinch hitter. But it's kind of a thing that doesn't make a lot of sense in a way.
Yeah, I would think that he's going to be some sort of off the bench kind of guy. We'll have to see when he finally makes it up to the Braves. Maybe they're going to platoon Freeman a little bit here and there. And possibly Ryan Howard was that guy that they could bring in. He might bring some fans to the ballpark, and he certainly hit the Braves well. So if he can continue that hitting in Atlanta, maybe it's something with the aroma down there, the food. But he seems to like Atlanta. He's always played well there, and I'm just happy for him, and I'm happy for the Braves.
Yeah, it's a move that we've waited for all winter, and yet another power hitter out there that didn't get signed over the winter, but. The Phillies have moved on from Ryan Howard as much as they have moved on from Chase Utley and who's the other guy I'm thinking of?
Your favorite, Jimmy Rollins.
Jimmy Rollins, yes, thank you. They've moved on for those, and they've gotten a lot younger. And, let's face it, we think it's going to be a long season for the team. They're in a full-blown rebuild, but there is some good young guys on the team, and the pitching staff on paper doesn't sound awful. I mean, you had Vince Velasquez last year that really surprised a lot of people. He came out of nowhere, I think, as far as I was concerned. But pitched pretty well for them, fought some injuries, and now you added Clay Buchholz. And Hendrickson you added last year. So what do you think about the starting five on this team, and your overall feelings about that, and some of the other young guys that they got in the staff?
I'm very happy with the starting five so far this year. They all very good. They have the potential to do very well. Vince Velasquez, as you said, is starting the home opener on Friday against the Nationals. And he didn't carry the Phillies last year, but I think he was one of the best pitchers on the team over the long haul. The Phillies also picking up Clay Buchholz from the Boston Red Sox in the offseason. He's sort of a guy that you could count on sometimes, but the scouting report on him was that you wonder which Buckholz is going to show up, the good one or the bad one, on any given night. He pitched well today. The Phillies lost their third game. They're 1-2 now. There was 2 home runs hit in the game by Daniel Nava, who had his first start as a Philadelphia Philly. He hit 2 long balls, but it wasn't enough for the Phillies to win. Again, the bullpen came back to haunt them, but rounding out the rest of the rotation, the starting rotation, you have Jeremy Hellickson, Jared Eichhoff, and a guy named Aaron Nola, which the Phillies were very high on. He was a top pick a few years ago, came up the Phillies ranks, and he really is somebody that the Phillies had a real big spotlight on initially when he came up. Struggled a little bit last year, but they still have some good hopes for him and hope that he's going to do well for 2017.
And we said it's a young team, and they've got a couple of guys now that have been there a couple of years. One in the outfield, Odubel, I never say it right, Herrera, and Michael Franco in the infield. Now he's been in. This will be, I think, his third year, Franco, in the infield, and there was some people that were a little upset last year with him because he didn't seem to. They thought he was gonna really explode and bloom, and he I don't want to say he took a step back, but he didn't meet all the expectations. How do you think he's going to do this year? And he always looks like a solid player. And how does the rest of the infield stack up?
Well, as you said, Michael Franco was going to be the guy to go to on this team. Last year, didn't do too badly. Batted .255 with 25 home runs and 88 RBIs. If he can come close to that this year, I think the Phillies will be very happy. It's very difficult for young players. Sometimes he's only 24 years old still to come up and put up those kind of numbers. So if he was to do that again this year, I think the Phillies would be very pleased with that, especially the RBIs. Right next to him, of course, at shortstop is Freddie Galvis, and we talked a little bit about him on a couple of our other shows, the Baseball Talk radio show, a couple weeks ago or so, and he's been doing very good. He's sort of given the Phillies a conundrum, so to speak. They have a guy waiting in the wings that's going to be in AAA this year. His name is J.P. Crawford. He's supposed to be the star of the future for the Phillies at shortstop. But Freddie Galvis has been playing so well last year and even the start of this year that I think the Phillies might have a problem on figuring out who's going to be their shortstop for the next couple of years, because you've got a guy in Freddie Galvis that's proving it on the field. And last year, J.P. Crawford took a little setback, so to speak, in the minor leagues. So interesting on that side of the field how it's shaping up. Of course, Cesar Hernandez over at second base this year. And over at first base, we got a platoon situation going on a little bit. Tommy Joseph, who won the starter's job over Ryan Howard last year. You might have remembered his name. He's a long ball hitter. Well, he had some company this year in spring training from a guy named Brock Stassi, who tore the cover off the ball in spring training in 2017. He made the team, didn't really expect to, but those two are going to be platooning at first base. So the Phillies infield is very solid. They have some good hitters on there. It's probably the best part of this team.
And you mentioned Brock Stassi, and of course we've talked about him on as well on another show. He did have a great spring training. Was he with the AAA team last year? And is this a total surprise that he made it this year, or was he somebody that they were thinking was a year or two away?
Well, he's sort of a surprise, so to speak. He's been He was drafted in 2011. Has been in the minors for a few years, so he's 27 years of age now, and people were starting to wonder, was he going to ever make a major league team? You know, you can go for a few years. He was drafted in the 33rd round, 1,021st to be picked that year in 2011, and the guy just broke into tears when he learned from manager Pete Mackanin that he had made the starting club. I mean, you know, some of these guys start to think they're never going to make it at a certain point, but he really made the most of spring training and earned his way on this Phillies team. They didn't give him a free pass. He actually earned it.
And that's always a great thing. You know, I can only imagine what a thrill that is to get that word from your manager that you've made the team. So kudos to him for going out and getting and winning the job on the team. You know, we've talked about the infield, we've talked about the pitching, and we'll get back to an aspect of the pitching. But the outfield, again, you had Odubel Herrera, who a couple of years ago was actually a Rule 5 draft guy that they kept all year, and he really had a terrific season. And now he's pretty well settled in there. And you added Howie Kendrick, and we were talking before how Daniel Nava had a couple of hits today, had a good game. So tell us a little more about the Phillies outfield and what we can expect.
Yeah, the Phillies outfield improved over the offseason. As you said, the Phillies added a couple of veterans, Howie Kendrick from the Dodgers and Michael Saunders from the Blue Jays. Both guys are, you know, guys that aren't going to be with this team for a while. And I read an interesting article the other day that lent to the effect that they may be trade bait at the trade deadline, especially if they're doing well. Not so sure that's going to happen. There was very lukewarm reception to both of them in the offseason. It's not like they're going to break out and have a great year and then all of a sudden somebody's going to really want them. But I think the Phillies had to add some veteran leadership to this team, and maybe they'll bring some of that to this outfield who, as you said, Odubel Herrera signed a 5-year deal with the Phillies for somewhere in the mid $30 million. Anymore, that's considered a bargain. I wish we could get some of that.
Yeah, that's for sure.
But the Phillies have Aaron Altair also in the wings. He's on this team. As you said, Daniel Nava made the team out of spring training. So they have a well-rounded outfield, and they will be platooning. So far in the first 3 games, they've platooned very well out there, with Altair getting a start already. Nava got a start today, his first in a Phillies uniform. What a great way to start off your career with the Phillies, with 2 home runs in one day.
That's starting it off that way anywhere is great, right? And of course, you mentioned briefly the manager Pete Mackanin doing a great job. Did a terrific job last year with this team, and really, I think they had a better year last year than a lot of people around the experts thought they were going to have.
Yeah, they didn't do as poorly as some had anticipated, although the numbers don't really add up. If you go into baseballreference.com, you could see they have a Pythagorean theory is what they call it, and that tells you how lucky a team got at certain points during a season after the season's over. They had the Phillies at 62 wins and 100 losses. So I believe in reality they actually won 71 games. So towards the end of the season, the Phillies did fold up terribly. I have to say that much. They almost sunk to the bottom of the MLB. In fact, many different stat categories they were at the bottom: batting average, slugging percentage, things like that. It just, the wheels came off with this team, in my opinion. In the beginning of the year, yeah, I think there was a lot of hope for them, and they started off pretty well. But towards the end of the season, it just, all the wheels flew off of this team.
And that so happens a lot with teams in what we used to call a second division. If you remember, when it was just a 10-team league and no divisions like they have now. But um, again, they're young, they're on the rise. But of course, the big question that really every team has is with their bullpen. How is this bullpen stack up, and how do you think they'll perform?
Well, they lost a game today, so chalk one up for the bullpen. And the first couple weeks, I try to keep a mental note. Okay, how did they lose? One time it was no offense so far, and now today it was the bullpen blew it. So they have a tough job. They have to keep these leads, whether or not they can or not. It's going to remain to be seen. I still think the bullpen might be the weakest link of the Phillies team. They just don't seem to have it in them to hold a lead. And Adam Morgan, who was a starter on the Phillies a little bit last year, was the victim today. But we had Mr. Gomez, who was made the closer on this team. Jeanmar Gomez is his name. He got into trouble the other night, had the bases loaded, gave up a couple runs, and right after that, Pete Mackanin, the Phillies manager, came out right in the press and just said, I hope I have a lot more faith in Jeanmar as time goes on. So if you had to pick one glaring aspect about the Phillies that they may not live up to standard, it might be the bullpen. So we'll see how it goes as time goes on in this season, though.
And that's always the thing, it seems, with every team that you just don't know about, and you have to see how it all plays out and what they're able to do. And it is a funny thing in baseball, though, with these bullpens, that one year they can be sensational. One game they can be sensational, and the next day they can absolutely be horrible. But I guess that's the way in anything nowadays.
Yeah, and I don't blame Jeanmar Gomez. He was never a closer. He never marketed himself as a closer. The Phillies last year had closer by committee. They didn't even know who the closer was going to be on game one of the season and leaving out of spring training. And somehow this Jeanmar Gomez sort of got the job, so to speak,
Yeah.
So they more or less put a tag on him. Okay, you're the closer. And he did well for most of the season. I mean, for a guy that's not a marketable guy, he made $1.4 million last year. Now, a good closer commands a lot more than that. So sometimes you get what you pay for in Major League Baseball. The Phillies traded away some good closers over the years and let a few walk away. But sometimes you got to look at your pay scale on that closer's role, and then you can settle down a little bit from there.
Any chance of him going after Papelbon again? I mean, is he still out there, or did he sign? I don't recall him signing with anybody. Did he?
I haven't heard anything about Papelbon this off season. I'm very surprised. Sort of like Ryan Howard. These are two big names in baseball. I'm looking it up right now as we're speaking, and I don't see a team that has Pap currently on it. So he's got a number of seasons in the books. I think 11 years now pitching, or 12 actually. He's a superior closer. He owns some of the records for the Phillies in the short time he was with the Phillies. Owns a lot of records. The fans didn't take to him, and he has his own way to deal with certain things. In Philadelphia, he made some wrong moves as far as towards the fans. And, you had a few hecklers. It wasn't towards every fan. It wasn't towards fans in general. But if somebody's yelling your name and yelling curse words at you from the stadium, I guess sometimes you can only take so much, not to say Papelbon's a great guy or anything, but he certainly was an awesome closer.
People yelling names at players in Philadelphia. Come on, Rich. Well, it sounds like they at least they seem to have a plan now, and they have some good prospects, and so perhaps it won't be as long. Just let the Mets win a couple of championships before they start coming back, because we don't want to have to worry about the Braves, the Phillies, and the Marlins and the Nationals. I think the Nationals are like the Nationals are probably going to be the first team to go on a downturn out of this. I think because the Mets are a little younger, perhaps, especially in the pitching department. So hopefully the Mets will be riding the wave there for a while, and they'll be fighting the Phillies. And it's always been a good rivalry between the two.
Yes, it has been. And as you said, the series kicks off with them. I'm going to do a little scouting right now, if you don't mind, because we're going to simulcast this small interview onto the Phillies Talk podcast as well. Monday, April 10th is the first game between the Mets and the Phillies, but it's also the Hatfield Phillies Frank's Dollar Dog Night as well.
Oh, there you go. And will you be attending that game at all?
Probably not.
Oh, darn.
I was wondering, do you have the advanced rotation for the games with the Phillies yet? From the Mets nation there. I'm wondering who the Phillies might be taking on.
Well, I don't have it exactly, but my guess would be that this weekend we know it's going to be Wheeler and Giselman and Syndergaard on against the Marlins. So that would bring Monday. You would see DeGrom, Harvey, and possibly Wheeler. So it's not going to be easy. But you're not going to see Syndergaard. Think of it that way. Think in a positive direction, Philly fans, that you're not going to see Syndergaard, but you'll get DeGrom, who, by the way, pitched 6 scoreless innings last night and looked very sharp in a no-decision effort. And the Mets did ultimately lose the game in that damn bullpen again, just like you said. Harvey looks pretty sharp tonight as he's going, and he's through 4. So he looks pretty good. And then Wheeler, we don't know yet. He's an unknown. He had a very good spring, but he's the big unknown so far. So he'll be pitching tomorrow night. So, but I think if everything goes according to Hoyle and there's no rainouts or anything like that, that should be who you see.
Oh gosh, just 2 aces and somebody else.
And a possibly third ace. that got sidetracked by injuries for 2 years.
That's great. But I did scout the Mets a little bit last night. What do you think their biggest acquisition in the offseason was, and do you think it's going to be successful for them?
Well, they really did not do much, but the one thing that they had to do, and I guess you would say it was an acquisition, and that was to re-sign Yoenis Cespedes. That was the big thing that they really felt they had to do from an offensive point of view, and they were able to keep him here. He loves being in New York. He loves playing for this team. Likes playing for Terry Collins. He loves the fans and everything here. So. And look, they made it worth his while. I mean, he's getting, I think, $110 million or something, which he could have got somewhere else. But he likes the golf courses here. He's a big golf fanatic, and he does. He just loves playing here, and he's made it known. And sometimes with these free agents, you just don't. You don't know if they truly are here for the money, or they're all there for the money. Let's be honest. But sometimes you wonder if they're happy signing somewhere. And he has said all the right things, and of course we never know really, but he seems to be very happy. He gets along great with all the teammates. There's no problem, and they really needed that bat in the lineup, and fortunately enough, he did resign. And that was really the only thing they really did. I saw today that they signed Desmond Jennings, the former Tampa Bay Ray, and I think Cincinnati Reds to a minor league deal. He'll play at AAA Las Vegas. But really not a lot of moves on this team made. They stood pat for the most part. The other thing they did do was they picked up an option on Neil Walker, and they picked up an option on Jay Bruce. So, but that's basically what they do. It's the same team that you saw last year, essentially, except Matt Harvey's back, and hopefully he stays healthy for the season. So far, he's healthy through 4 innings. Zach Wheeler will be back. That's going to be an important thing to see how he has come back after 2 years of being of not pitching in the major leagues. He had Tommy John surgery and then had some complications last season. So he's back, had a strong spring, and that's basically it.
Very good. Well, I'm still waiting for the next Phillies-Mets trade that might happen. I know over the years we've spoken about this. There's some memorable trades between the two teams, but I'm also looking ahead at the schedule with the Phillies and the Mets. The Phillies and the Mets play Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in April, the 10th, 11th, and 12th, and then the Phillies travel up to the Mets the 18th, 19th, and 20th, and then we don't see it to the end of June.
Yeah, big gap then in time, and sometimes those schedules get a little crazy, but I might even go to that game on the 20th. I don't know yet. I'll have to see. I may consider that, but yeah, well, they play 18, 19 times a year, and we'll be seeing a lot of Philadelphia, and I'm sure we'll be talking to you again as we progress through this 2017 season. And as always, my friend, I want to thank you for coming on the show, and we'll be back after these messages.
Thank you very much, Gary.